Hi everybody, welcome back to the shop and happy springtime. 4 years ago to the day, I bought these two knives from Woodcraft with the intent on putting my own scales on them and maybe shooting a video. It's time to get them finished and get them in the kitchen. For starters, I'm going to take this piece of bloodwood here, which I have marked out, and I'm going to try and get the scales for the larger knife off of both of these cuts here. I don't know about you, but this is making me nervous as hell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some cardboard and tape around this blade before we go any further. All right, now I'm in less danger of losing a finger. I'm going to slowly sand these until I get this to fit just perfectly. None of this audio is going to get kept anyway. So I did actually recut this piece of wood. It wasn't quite big enough to fit, but now I think these fit pretty well. I've got enough extra. Pull one of these off, and then we will clamp this into the drill press and we'll drill holes to insert pins. These are the pins that came with it. They're a 2-part pin, stainless steel. I'm not a fan. I'd rather do it the old-fashioned way. Here's some brass. This is probably, given the size of the blade, about the right size at 5/32. This 3/16 is too big, 3/32 is too small, 1/8 of an inch. And this is probably a good compromise right here. I don't know how brass is going to contrast. This is 1/8 inch stainless steel, so if the 1/8 inch brass was right on, then the 1/8 inch stainless steel will also work. Here's our two choices. I decided to go with stainless steel. All right, so I flipped this around and I put the scales on the other side. I'm going to use these holes that I drilled the first time as guide holes. And I've also replaced this, instead of using a 1/8 inch, I'm using a fractional bit that's I think it's 128. Instead of 125, it's 128. That was dumb. One didn't go all the way through. At 1/8 of an inch, at 125 thousandths, this was really, really very tight. But at 128, this slides in pretty easily, but without too much slop. So next I'll start taking some of the extra wood off, getting it down to shape. But I'm probably going to use a sander for this because this is some hardwood. A little bit of sanding on a very large grizzly sanding wheel. It was overkill, honestly, but we're coming in close to that profile, mixing the stainless steel and the brass, like a brass center pin and stainless steel on either end. Now let's see if the stainless steel works and see if I'm going to be changing this up. I wonder if this is hard enough, or if the stainless steel is harder. Oh well. Top of my anvil's not harder. However, you know what is hardened? This chunk of 303 round. Well, it's not hardened, but well, we know brass works. Stainless steel, I might have to make my pins just barely long enough. Pretty close, but I may grind these down just a little bit, and I'll get this closer to final dimension so that when I do set these in, the little bit that I can get them to mushroom will be just enough to lock them in along with the epoxy. You can see this one's got too much sticking out. So I'm going to grind these down a little bit, maybe take half of that amount off. I also found something harder. then my little toy anvil. It is magnetic, so if it's a stainless steel, it's not one of the high grades. Very tough, very hard. I've already tested it, and it does not deform. It's got a lot of mass, a lot of heft to it. Getting closer. Getting there slowly but surely. This is hard wood. Got to make sure you keep even pressure, otherwise it starts to sand the ends more so than the middle. And it helps to check it to see if it's rocking at any point. You can see how much I've taken off, and there's still some to go. This bloodwood is very hard stuff, and I don't know if the look or the strength is actually worth the effort. Probably should have tried some maple. Oh well. I'm gonna try and tackle this inside corner here. Piece of plywood, some double-sided tape, and this is 100 grit, same as this stuff. Inside here is really difficult to get to. Let me go test fit this, see how it fits. I'll be honest, I think I'm gonna have to call that good enough. I'm gonna grind these pins down, epoxy this, and then hammer those pins in. First I'm gonna clean this with acetone. You see there's some residue of something in there, so. Clean these off too, make sure. I did scuff them up with 100 grit. I'm mixing up a generous amount of this clear 2-ton epoxy. Never done this before, so let's see how this goes. I try and drop it straight down instead of sliding it in like I have been from the side. Okay, that's pretty good. Gotta make sure that doesn't slide out of the side there. It wants to move, and that's what the pins will keep it from doing. The pins will keep it from sliding. All right, I'm going to clamp these and then let it dry at least overnight. I decided to put 3 clamps just to be sure. And so I'm going to put it off in the corner, and it's going to sit there at least 24 hours. Now I'm going to grind these down just a little bit. I've already done this side to get these down just a little bit so that I can take the wood down, and I'm going to do this side right here. So these are pretty proud of the surface. Okay, we're back. So what I'm doing now is I've taken some of my scrap and I've kind of sanded the reverse curve into one end, and then I've made sure that this end is flat, and I've double-sided taped This is 50 grit. No, it's 80 grit. Some 80 grit aluminum oxide emery cloth that should cut both the wood and the stainless steel. So let's give that a shot and see how this works. Well, it's definitely taking the wood off. Let's see how this inside curve is going to work. Okay, I like that, and that's starting to cut into the epoxy. So here we are after about an hour of hand sanding. This stuff is really tough. It creates very fine dust that clogs easily, so you got to watch your paper. And also, it's starting to wear on the ends. And then I slipped, and it went across just the edge, not the edge of the steel or the hilt, but the edge of the wood, and it just peeled that right off. So I'm probably going to change these out. All in all, I think it's cutting really well. You can see the rivet heads are nice, even, and can't feel that one at all. Feel that one slightly. Again, that one really slightly, but I'm really happy with the way it's coming along. As soon as I start to see light scratches on this, I'll switch to a higher grit, from this coarse 80 grit to something like 150, maybe even 240. Just getting the contour here. You can see all the way around. We've hit the hilt. Oh, I don't know if that's the part of it. I don't remember the name of that. But we've hit all the metal. And I'm just making sure that there's a smooth transition and no sharp edges here. This is 320. So I wound up going backwards to the 600 because I realized at the 1200 grit, it wasn't taking out some of the, you can see some scratches here that are just not going to come out. The casting was not perfect in here, and there's not enough to get in there and get some of those out. But there are some of these others that you can see there, very fine scratches. I'm going to try and get these out. And then across the back, there's some here that I'd like to get out of the middle. See the center? I wound up going all the way back to 320. The very fine scratches show up much better on the camera than they do with the naked eye. Ended with 1500 grit, and I might take it to 2000, but I don't think so. I think this leaves a nice finish. All right, so this is essentially done. I took a fresh sheet of the 1500 grit because the slightly worn sheet, as I went along, it was giving me a very high polish, and that was showing too many scratches, and I kind of looked like the slight satin look that a fresh sheet gives me. So if you've got one of these, or if you got one of the newer 61-layer Damascus kits from Woodcraft, I hope you learned something. I hope this gives you some ideas of how you can do it yourself, as far as the difficulty of using stainless steel and using bloodwood for the scales. Thanks for watching. Take care. All right, so here's the smaller blade finished. Flame maple.